So I'm going to start this off by saying there's definitely something manly about No Doubt, because having a crush on Gwen Stefani is, I mean, it's still going to this day.
There's a few people out there that would sympathize with you there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Legend.
Perfect. Well, so is everybody ready? Should we just dive right into this?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. This is episode number 39 of the Flatirons Syndicate Motorsports Podcast. I know that it's episode number 39 because I wrote it down, because I keep getting that wrong, so forgive me. But today we have got with us a whole bunch of people. We've got Scotty, he's out back doing Scotty things, Tasso, Ryan from DSX Motorsports, and then there's another person here joining us, another special guest. We've got Cole Powelson from Lyfe Motorsports and from Sierra Cars joining us. And so, Cole, first off, thanks very much for making the time and for sitting in with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us, guys. It's a pleasure.
Excellent. I was trying to think of where to start with this, and I kind of want to start talking with you about the Sierra Cars.
Yeah.
Because Scotty and I had the opportunity. We actually went out and drove the Sierra Cars with you up on Georgetown Lake this past winter. And, man, that was fun. And I guess, how did Sierra Cars come out of Lyfe Motorsports? Or did they come out of Lyfe Motorsports?
Yeah. No, that's exactly what it was. So,
okay.
A little background on me. I started as a mechanic, factory-trained Porsche mechanic. I was the youngest guy to graduate factory training back in the day. And that's kind of how I got my automotive career started. If you want to go back further than that, I was ruining people's Subarus in my parents' driveway. And that's, just generations doing that stuff. So I got into cars like 1997, 1998. I wasn't even 16 yet. And I saw like WRC cars. And I saw a Subaru going through a water crossing, and I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I'm from Utah. The Subarus I saw were at the ski resort, just cruising up and down the canyon. And so got into cars there, became a mechanic, got into the Porsche side of things, and then worked my way into racing. Started Lyfe Motorsport, and I grew up broke. I didn't come from money or anything like that. So every thing in motorsport that I wanted to do, I had to find a way to get it, and that's why I became a mechanic, is start doing it for myself.
Sure.
Eventually that turned into doing it for other people. From there, it turned into Lyfe Motorsport as a fab shop. But I remained the broke guy in my head, and I wanted more performance for less money. Weight was the enemy, and the Sierra car was like, man, you can have 200 horsepower and it probably weighs, 800, 900 pounds. You have great power to weight ratio, super reliable. And, I have the internet like everybody else, and I was watching cross-kart videos. I was like, damn, this seems like a pretty good compromise between asphalt and dirt performance and cost of operation, because I want to go Porsche GT3 fast, but I got like WRX money. I don't even have ST money. And so I was stuck between these two worlds, because I had tasted the sweet nectar that was high performance cars and proper race cars. I just flat out couldn't afford it. So the basis of Sierra was to create an affordable platform without sacrificing the performance. Still keep a really high level of performance and reliability, but make it so a regular person could feel and experience what that high level of performance was like.
That's awesome. And what made me wonder if it came out of Lyfe Motorsports is, with working on cars, building race cars, you're taking you have a platform handed to you that you're then modifying or changing to get it to perform the way that you want it to. And like the most clear picture I have from you of that is like the Lyfe Motorsports GTR, where you've taken a GTR, it's still a GTR, and you can tell that it's a GTR, but you guys have changed, it seems like, every nut and bolt on that car and just formed it into the shape that you need it to be. And then with Sierra Cars, it's like it's the next progression of that, where I'm guessing you started with pretty much a blank slate. You kind of knew what you kind of like knew what the framework needed to be, and then you just kind of built the whole thing out from scratch.
Well, I'll tell you, we started with a seat. We set it on the table, and then I put my legs out, and I said, "It's got to be this long.
It's got to be this long." Nice.
I'm 6'2". Like, I wish I had a better story about how it came to be, but it was like,
makes total sense.
Yeah, and so I wanted a safe chassis, something that could pass tech at Pikes Peak or Rallycross, or meet FIA standards or desert racing standards. So that was kind of the basis. There was two fundamental pieces that were a part of this program. Wheels and tires, wheels, and then the Hayabusa engine. So those were the two things. The Hayabusa has been around forever. It's tried, it's true, it's proven. Great power to weight ratio. You can find them online all day for $1,500. So I said, this is going to be the engine that we're going to base everything around. And the other thing was 13-inch wheels and tires, because every good racing slick comes in a 13. All the good tires for that side of things comes in a 13. And it's easy to go to 14 or 15-inch wheel and get all the good rally tires too. So that was the two main things that we based the design of the car around. Is, I'm 6'2", I'm a taller guy, so if the car can fit me, it's going to fit 95% of the people in the world. The Hayabusa engine, it is proven. It takes boost really well. It was going to help me achieve those Pikes Peak dreams. Part of this is self-serving with the Sierra stuff, because I had Pikes Peak dreams. There's things that I wanted to do, goals I wanted to accomplish, while simultaneously creating a car that would be high performing and low cost for the average consumer. And those are the main ingredients that we based everything around. And because Lyfe Motorsports heavy in metal fabrication and engineering, we had the ingredients to start the process. And honestly, I almost went broke building the first two prototypes, because bit off more than I could chew. Took so much to develop something from scratch. It's far more complicated than using a GTR chassis as the basis of the build. And you have this company makes suspension, this one makes carbon fiber roof or hood. To build everything from scratch, there's a few hundred part numbers that are ours, from scratch, and that really kicked our ass over time. So luckily I was able to find buyers for those cars before they were done. And guys helped funded the project the rest of the way through, but it was a big undertaking to build something from scratch like that.
Go ahead, Scotty.
We drove two cars up at Georgetown Lake. You said one of them, the lower powered one, was one of the first chassis you made, right?
That was an RX-3 that originally was a Hayabusa powered car that we then converted to a 700cc car. So after 2 years of building the car as Hayabusa only, we had a request from driving school saying, hey, this car is badass, but our students don't need 200 horsepower.
It's too much. Sure.
Yeah, it's a lot. So
because that other one was what, 80 horsepower?
60
horsepower, and it was a hoot.
It's so good.
At 60 horsepower on a frozen lake, I could have done it all day, and I tried to do it all day.
Yeah. Well, the biggest surprise of that whole thing was, I thought we were building a school car, a kid's car, something like that, and it exceeded all of our expectations. The car lost 150 pounds, but 60% of its power. It was a good trade. It was a fair trade, because the car still performs so good in off-road stuff and on the ice. You don't really, and it still goes 70 miles an hour, so it still cooks really good. So we had a good chassis, good suspension, brakes, and foundation to base everything around, and then just put the lower horsepower engine behind it, and it's just as fun to drive. It doesn't have that wow factor of all the power, but it is plenty fun to drive. And
absolutely.
I was in sand dunes with it 2 months ago, and it was my car of choice. I was in the 700 with power steering, just cruising around. It was such a fun thing to cruise around on, and you don't have to drive it like a race car. You can just kind of cruise around. And that kind of happened on accident and turned out to be one of our better cars.
And it's worth mentioning, so it's a single piston engine, so it's got a lot of low end torque, so that the horsepower doesn't tell all the story. It is still actually a pretty torquey engine. And I just remember it just felt like it just had all this grunt, in the low gears. I can totally see it on the sand dunes. It just being a blast.
Where'd you find a 700cc single piston motor?
Yamaha quad.
Man,
wow.
Yeah,
that's a beefy piston.
I looked at the math behind it. It's just similar bore and stroke as a big block. So it's
wow.
Just take one hole out of a big block and there you go. It really exceeded our expectations on that stuff, and everybody loves to drive them, and it's a good choice. We've sold a couple of the new cars where people have the RX-3 suspension and brakes, so it's got the longer travel, big brakes and all that, with the lower power package. Another advantage of that is it's chain drive, but it also has reverse. Where a Hayabusa, you don't have reverse. So you can get in certain situations on a track spin or something like that, and you're waiting for somebody to come and push you out. Whereas the 700cc car, it has built-in reverse from the factory, those quads did. So there's another nice little feature. We now offer reverse on all the Hayabusa powered cars with a SEDEV gear transfer system. So we've ditched the chain on the Hayabusa cars, got away from that, and it's all gear drive now. So it offers reverse, adjustable gear ratios, and cool stuff like that. But
Nice.
yeah, the 700 kind of happened on accident, and I was a little reluctant to do it, but we had a request for it. And yeah, we turned it into, we build these things, and there's 2 engine options now.
Very cool.
I wanted to ask you, Cole, about the suspension. Like, how was my guess would be that one of the biggest challenges, like building the actual like skeleton of the car, you know what the protection requirements are, you know what the size is, that's probably a pretty easy part. Once you know what the engine and the drivetrain is, you know where you're going to put it. And so that's a pretty easy packaging constraint to work with.
Yeah.
But my guess is that coming from scratch, figuring out what the suspension was going to look like, how long the arms were going to be, the position of the pickup points, how connected to the chassis, was that one of the biggest challenges that you ran into?
By far. Yeah. Doing something from scratch, like, with the GTR, Nissan did so much hard work to make that stuff, package and work together.
Yeah.
And, it's another one of those things you take it for granted until you go and do it. I look at the first Sierra, we built 2 at the same time, the very first 2 prototypes. They were slightly different, just so we had the ability to test 2 different things at once. But that car was kind of a shitbox. It was lightweight, it had power, but man, you were fighting for your life with that thing, and it wasn't a real pleasure to drive. It was exhilarating, but it wasn't a pleasure. And we've gone through 8 different complete front suspension redesigns over the 4 years. So it's everything, it affects how everything that you feel through the chassis, how it takes different terrains. And, we're asking the thing to perform well on smooth asphalt, or the upper section of Pikes Peak where it's super bumpy, or we're out in the desert and we have 30-inch off-road tires. We're asking one set of suspension to tick all those boxes and be really good. And it took a long time to get that dialed in. And I look at some of the sway bars that we built and designed and different suspension things that we tried to model. And, on paper, it was going to be an improvement. And step back. And it was, you spend literally thousands of dollars and tons of time creating the suspension that you think is going to be better, and you go out and test it and you're like, damn, we just took a step back. But you just kept working at it and chipping away, and there was things that I wanted to improve that I didn't have the time or budget to at the time. And so we were just kept running the car, kept testing other things, and knowing this part of the suspension needed to be better, we needed more travel, we needed more steering angle, whatever it was. And when the time came that we raised enough money to be able to do that, we'd go and make that change. And all of that led up to what became our production car in 2021. So the previous 3 years of cars were all prototypes in a sense.
Okay.
I would sell them to people, but only if they understood it was a prototype. Like, hey, we've got a better version of this coming out in the future. It'll bolt right up, but it's not where I want it to be today. And people understood that, they got it. And so the first batch of cars, we sold to close friends and people who were racers and people who understood, and they helped to test with development. And they found things that, or requested things that we hadn't tested. And so we've had 450 test drivers at this point.
Sure.
You guys are part of those numbers. And so we've had little old ladies, we've had big fat bald men, we've had everything in between, as far as people getting in and out of the cars and experience levels. And I think that's really helped to refine it. But the suspension by far has been the most difficult thing to get sorted out, to tick all the boxes across those.
Is coming from scratch and being through, like kind of running through that gauntlet, does that now give you a different perspective or a different place to start if you're working on something like a production car again, to try and refine it, to get it to handle better or to improve it?
100%. So my favorite thing to do, I got into this as a mechanic, not because I wanted to be a mechanic, it's because I wanted to be a race car driver. But nobody's going out like, hey, go to race car driver school and get a job. But there's plenty of people hiring mechanics. So I am absolutely love the race driving and the race development. So I've learned so much over the past 4 years with the Sierra stuff, as far as magnitude of change from maybe a sway bar change or bump steer change, roll set, stuff like that. I have a much better idea today of those factors and how they play into car setup. And so, it's just knowledge I keep in the back of my head. And when I'm going out and setting up a customer car or doing a new build, I have a much better idea of direction to go and ideas of how to make improvements to the chassis. So because I've been the principal test driver on all this stuff, I've just been soaking up information, have literally tried dozens and dozens of setup changes. And yeah, it's made me a much better development driver, and we've been able to really refine the car to a really sharp point.
Yeah, I mean,
now you said that Nissan really knows how to set up a car. Like they did all the work for you on the GTR. Is there anything that you've learned with the Sierra car that you would want to now change on the GTR as far as suspension geometry? Or
the GTR is easy because it's so one track. The hard part about the GTR is downforce. Managing dampers, because you have two different cars. You've got a car off downforce, below 60 miles an hour. And then as that thing ramps over 60, it's like, I can't even explain how much downforce that car has or what it feels like. I've driven, high downforce open wheel cars like a Formula Atlantic, and that makes really good downforce, but it's a third of what the GTR makes. So getting the GTR to work with the downforce has been the biggest change. And thank God I had that experience before I started doing the Alpha, the Pikes Peak Alpha, because it has loads of downforce too. So setting up bump rubbers and packers and understanding how the spring rates work over the aero loading, making sure at low speed in the hairpins you still have good soft springs so the thing will turn, but stiff enough that it'll keep it off the ground when you're at 120. That was it almost worked backwards. I learned something from the GTR that I applied to the Alpha, but it's much harder to get the suspension to work on the Sierras than it is like the GTR.
Sure.
And Cole, would you say that it sounds like when you're describing the Sierra car program that you had running a car at Pikes Peak in mind kind of for that platform from the beginning? But did you, I mean, and I've seen you guys run up a number of different configurations of Sierra car, but when you're talking about the Alpha, so this is the turbocharged Hayabusa one that has, the big wing, just a huge front splitter. Was something that far built to run up Pikes Peak? Was that always a part of it, or was it, did you just decide to really give it a try to put all that big aero on the chassis and see what it would do?
That was the plan from the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, I drove a cross kart years ago, and I was like, damn, this is pretty good, but it was very, very narrow. It had small amount of suspension travel. It could go on hard packed dirt, but you couldn't take it to the sand dunes, really. It was just really limited in what it could do. And I said, well, I want all the things. I want to be able to jump in the desert, and I want to be able to climb Pikes Peak with a turbo and go fast. And so definitely Pikes Peak that's what the Alpha was built for, is to be hill climb, time attack, like quick, shorter runs, like as fast as you can go, lots of power, lots of downforce. So I wanted to take that great package, mid-engine, open wheel race car, and be able to pile on the downforce and turn up the boost and make a sub 10 run, which ultimately we were able to accomplish. But took some years, took a few attempts, but that
always does.
No goal, yeah. Yes, it does.
Well, and just let's kind of frame it out. So what, with that final year where it all came together, what is the time that you put down in the Sierra Alpha?
9:37.
Which is, so to be in the 9-minute club of Pikes Peak, that is a pretty exclusive club, and especially deep into the nines, that is definitely not a small effort. That's pretty amazing.
Like my favorite stat, it's also burns the most. I was less than 2 seconds away from winning overall in a car that we built from scratch, and against legends, like Dallenbach and Baschholz up there. So to stand on the podium next to those guys, to be that close to the overall was farther than I ever thought we would ever be able to go. And man, it's just a really, really cool thing that I'll be able to carry with me for the rest of my life. It was a special moment for sure. And I didn't think we'd be able to go that deep on that day, but it makes you think how much more is still in it, because we didn't have the boost turned up. We don't have a diffuser on it that we want. And so very limited testing time and everything. It was,
sure.
very happy with that accomplishment considering what we had into it. And then it was a car built from scratch. So.
And I would say it's worth mentioning that it's not a car like if you think about the cars that have been really successful at Pikes Peak in probably like the last 5 or 8 years, your build does not fit with really any of those builds. I wouldn't say. That maybe, gosh, is it Vaschultz that has the kind of, maybe there's one car that's similar to us here.
Vaschultz is open wheel, but he's front engine.
Okay.
And Dallenbach is probably closer because he's a mid-engine rear drive guy, so he's a little bit closer.
Yeah.
He's very much a Pikes Peak expert. The car is meant to work there. Where the Alpha was not one dimension, just a Pikes Peak car. There was other things that we wanted to do. I thought it would be a strong Pikes Peak car, but it definitely wasn't like this is the only thing that we're going to do with it.
Right. Over your shoulder, I do happen to see what I believe is the Nürburgring.
That's
now,
correct.
is that maybe something that you had in mind for the Alpha?
Nope.
No? Okay.
No. I've been there. I've driven it. It's rad. I dig it, but it's not on the Alpha attack list. We've toyed with the idea of taking the GTR there and running some of the Aero. But it's just a special place for me. It's going there. I got to experience the culture behind it and the people.
Sure.
And it was unlike anything else I've experienced car culture wise. It was a really special place, really grassroots. You got people in old shitbox BMWs just making laps and laps and laps, and they're so fast, because it's their backyard. But it was a really kind of cool thing. But actually traveling there makes me want to compete there less.
Oh,
oddly enough.
Why's that?
That's not. It doesn't do it for me as a time attack place. I don't think I need to go and set a quick time there. To me, I'd rather go and enjoy the car culture and the people. Not so much the food. I don't find German food to be my favorite, but everything else they do pretty good. They got beer down. But
Sure.
I got more respect for car culture as a whole going to Nürburgring, and I don't want to ruin it with competition. There's certain things I think in motorsport should be more fun, and other things should be really focused and on racing. And I want to keep Nürburgring fun.
Nice. Well, and Cole, you mentioned time attack, and that was one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about in depth too. Well, I guess related to that is because Pikes Peak is for time, it's over a given course. Was there an appeal of the Pikes Peak hill climb that kind of scratched the same itch as time attack, or did Pikes Peak, was that kind of its own goal in and of itself compared to competing in something like time attack?
Pikes Peak was my first automotive goal ever. Before anything really, it was Gran Turismo. Honestly, it was fed to me on a spoon. Like, here, try this video game.
Man, they got so many of us with that.
Well, what's weird? My logic and reasoning behind this was, I looked at the map. They've got the Gran Turismo map. The closest track to my house was Pikes Peak, so I chose that one. My second favorite track was Laguna Seca because it was close to my house. And so, I became infatuated with both of those places. And Pikes Peak was always special because I grew up in Utah doing outdoor stuff, and mountains and race cars and dirt were like everything. So between Pikes Peak and learning about like Subaru WRC stuff, the natural progression was just go to Pikes Peak. And at the time, there was dirt guys chasing the sub 10, club, and it was a wild time with wild cars. And that really hooked me. That was the number one thing in motorsport I was interested in. So I set my sights on Pikes Peak, and I didn't think I'd ever have the opportunity to drive it. I always wanted to just be a spectator, work for a team that was maybe running there. I didn't realize I'd have the driving opportunities that I've had, later in life. I didn't come from money, so I didn't get my first go-kart till I was 23. I got a shifter cart and started racing then. I'm 35 now, and so it's been but I was doing Gran Turismo in 98 or whatever it was.
Yep.
It's been kind of a odd path to get there to Pikes Peak. And then Pikes Peak was kind of like, oh, this is a version of time attack. And because I was a Porsche mechanic and I was working in circuit racing, I was into circuit racing. I thought it was cool. Not quite as cool as rally, but I knew it. I understood it. I was working in the industry. And so I started doing more asphalt racing, and naturally I was drawn to the time attack stuff, because working in pro racing, it's stuffy, man. That place sucks. It's spec rules, and here's your tire, here's your wing angle. You can't do anything to the car. And like
Okay.
what do you mean you can't do anything to the car? You can't change it. So I was really drawn to time attack because of the freedom, and it was freedom of the build, because I had that mechanical background of constantly improving and chasing the cars. That time attack just was like, yeah, those cars look wild. Let's go do that. It's like a Pikes Peak car, but asphalt only. And it was new and exciting. And that's kind of how I transitioned from doing Pikes Peak stuff over to time attack. But
Very cool.
time attack happened before I ever had a Pikes Peak opportunity. So it was,
one leads to the other, which leads back.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, so that's really interesting that the open rule set of time attack it sounds like was more of the appeal than maybe the structure of time attack initially.
100%. Yeah, it was because I approached it as a car builder and developer. That was the rad part. Of course, I want to compete and do well, but it was like, how wild can this car be? I think that there's a lot of individualism from a car build that people can have. You develop your own personal skills, and it's like you put your person into this car. It's a reflection of yourself. And so I felt pretty strongly about that stuff. A lot of the guys that I saw in pro racing, they didn't give a crap about what they were driving. They're showing up, writing the big check, hop in there, make their laps, and they were out. It was like no attachment. It was they were there for, in my opinion, for the wrong reasons. They liked cars and they had the money and could do it. But they weren't like passionate about it. They didn't love it. They had no attachment. They didn't wrench on the car. They didn't build anything themselves. And it was like just kind of disheartening working in pro racing, honestly. And it was like just pushed me that much harder to time attack.
Gotcha.
And so how much?
It sounds like a lot of the same stuff that drew me to hill climb versus stage rally as well.
Mm-hmm.
The open rule set, a bunch of people hanging out in the wood or in a field together versus, pro teams coming in with, more easy ups than I have tires and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, it's easy to get pushed out. That's like, I'm a grassroots guy. I love supporting the grassroots guy. Obviously, I've been fortunate enough to work with clients that want to do high-end builds with me and the rest of the team here. But the vibe's got to be right. I don't want to go sit in a stuffy paddock where people are spending exponentially more money to have less and less of a good time. Like, I just didn't get it. Like, why do I go to a drift event and all these people are having a great time and they're spending small amounts of money, and then I go to a pro race where people are spending millions of dollars a year and they don't seem to be having a good time. They're not hanging around after the track. Oh, session's over, hop in my plane, I'm out. Like, they're not making friends. They're not hanging out. They're doing it for the vanity of it. And
Right.
It just felt wrong.
Yeah, we make the joke all the time about how there's not enough personality in pro racing. And there's always the talk of like, all right, what kind of personality are you going to be? What kind of person are you going to inspire? What kind of like next generation of drivers are going to be our future, And I feel like the time attack scene and Global Time Attack does a really good job of it, of really like highlighting their drivers at a national level and kind of helping create those personalities, create those narratives, create those things that people get excited about when it really is just, one car, one lap, shooting for the perfect time.
And it's relatable. People get that.
Absolutely.
I'm a working class guy. Like, this is, it takes me everything I have every single year. No matter, you give me $1 million, I'm just going to spend it on race cars, and like, it'll get better, but it's like I'm still spending everything that I have. And I think time attack being relatable to the regular guy, to be able to say, hey, I'm going to take my street car and put some stuff on it and go and compete. Going down to World Time Attack in Australia was absolutely amazing. The first year I went, I've been 4 times now, and there's regular working class mechanics that build up their cars and go and compete on the world stage and put down killer times. And I don't see that anywhere else, to where you can go on the pro stage as a club racer and get recognition and show your worth and show your build. And Time Attack gives people the platform and showcase to be able to do that, unlike any other version of pro racing. Like, you want to rent a GT3 Cup car for a weekend, $30,000, you're on a shit team, good luck. Oh, hope you don't wreck it. Then you're really in trouble. So there's Time Attack cars that are $30,000 where people are having a great time, and they're running competitively. So it's kind of a cool thing that to be able to do and experience and dream about, because I was that mechanic. I am that guy that started. Fortunately, I've been able to drive customer cars that have, builds that are worth more than my house. And that's great. I love it because it's a very high performing car, but I'm not the money guy behind these things. I'm just fortunate enough to be able to develop it and work with the guys behind the scenes.
I think that having that attainability of that goal of racing, like that, like you guys said, time attack and hill climbs, that is the thing that those two racing disciplines have together. Is like you can come up with an idea in your garage that you want to try out, and either one of those platforms give you an arena that you can try that idea out at and then refine it, and you can just build to a point where you can be successful, and it's something that you can do versus like having to have a spec car. Like, well, I want to run, in like this, whatever world challenge, and it's got to be up to a GT3, GT4 class. That's very limiting. But like you can, like I'm sure Tasso was out there looking at his car in the garage that had a Cajun, and like, all right, what can I do to this thing? What can I take out? What can I put on it? I just want to go fast. And you can try it all, and you can go out there and run it.
Yep. Yeah,
And so, Cole, I wanted to ask, like, one of the things we talk about a lot is we sit here in the garage, drink beer, staring at the car, like, what can I do to it? And how much beer did you drink to get that GTR, like, to the point where it's at?
Oh man, all the beers we drink. It's just been nonstop. It never stops. I look at the car. I just barely got it. I haven't seen it. It's been stranded in Texas because our trailer broke and I couldn't get an axle and didn't have the money and this, that, and whatever. So it's sat in Texas for the past 6 months since
Coda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
And so I just got it back and I was so excited. I was so excited to see the car again. And I'm like, oh, I want to change this and this and this. Like, it never stops. And so I guess I'm just going to keep drinking beer until I solve all the world's problems. But yeah, I wish I could say it got better, it stopped, or there was some like end. We're lucky enough to be able to like have 2 shots at this. The first Time Attack GTR that we built was originally based off the Cobb tuning Time Attack car, their R35. They kind of retired that. I reached out to those guys. A customer and friend of mine was interested in getting deeper into racing. That was the car that we based our first Time Attack efforts with. It was a wheel-to-wheel racer. We won a 6-hour endurance race with it, and it was a cool car. But we said, hey, if we're going to take this Time Attack stuff serious, we need to start from scratch. And so Sydney, that GTR, started from scratch. And now if I could go back and start from scratch again, we'd do it a little bit different, Even if it just never stops. And so, you just keep the beers flowing and keep the creativity going.
I think one of the things I've seen you talk about is that the GTR, even I think the second one started as a production car, and I think you've kept the all-wheel drive drivetrain in it. But most of the GTRs that are running in like the GT3 class are rear-wheel drive.
Right.
Is that one of the things that now you would maybe try out, or is it something else?
No, Aero. If I was to rebuild a Time Attack car, so Sydney actually has a lot of off-the-shelf. We run factory subframes, front and rear, factory engine and transmission locations. The strut towers are unchanged. The suspension you can buy off the shelf. Like all the suspension components you can buy from Wisefab. Our dampers are Olin's. They're on the shelf. You can buy those. Aero is everything in Time Attack. We all know how to make power. Put more boost to it. There's billet this and turbos and all that. So power, like everybody's got power figured out. We can all make power. It's how do you put that power to the ground? And Aero is everything. It was really underestimated. Back in 2014 when we started the first GT, the big Sydney project. I underestimated because I'd been built an Alumilite splitter and put this wing on, and like I was just scratching the surface. I didn't realize how much that mattered. Like, it's everything. It really is everything. And so if I would restart the R35, big tunnels in the floor, move some stuff around, like I would start over and do it differently. The whole chassis and aero construction probably run about the same power level and stuff, but chassis and aero would be completely done differently.
build the chassis up from an aero standpoint first versus anything else.
Well, and we did do that. But at the time there was, budget and time constraints, and it was like, hey, well, we're not going to change these subframes. We're not going to change the factory transmission. We have our center tunnel, which enters from underneath the middle of the car and exits out the rear bumper, and that works. That gets us a good aero balance, but it ultimately isn't getting us the downforce levels that the top 5 cars are. The top 5 World Time Attack cars are on another level, another planet. They are just out of this world. I want them to come to COTA because they will smash everyone. Like, you got the fastest time there now, dude, they will put 5+ seconds on us, like, in the practice day. They're that far ahead of us.
And how much did you start with the aero on the Corvette that you guys built? That was for a customer, right?
That's another customer build, and that was we wanted to achieve similar downforce levels, but a little bit more efficient without doing tunnels, because doing tunnels meant engine relocation, new transaxle, custom arms all the way across. So we wanted to be able to put that aero on a factory chassis, essentially. And so it makes a little bit less downforce than the GTR, but it's more aero efficient. So less drag for similar downforce numbers. And
Gotcha.
that, again, budget, time constraints. But if you don't give me those things, then I would start with the aero. Like when we started with Sydney, we scanned the old GTR, which we named Frank the Tank, and I'm actually driving that at Pikes Peak next year. If they accept my entry, diesel powered, oddly enough. But that's another story. So when we started building Sydney, we knew aero was start with aero and then build the rest of the car around that. So that's what we did. Because if you can't dream up that center tunnel later, and because that happens with chassis construction. So the aero was done very first. We had the Aero Design. It was done by Andrew Brilliant, who worked with on numerous projects now, and he's been great. Probably the best value in motorsports is working with him on our aero, and so everything was done based around that. And Andrew's great because he worked around the constraints of the shop. We didn't have near the composites experience that we do now. And there's a lot of stuff that was unknown. So we stayed on a relatively attainable aero build, something that we knew we could build. But understanding, what our capabilities are today, I would go full big tunnels that start, underneath my driver's seat. We have rear tunnels start functioning. Wow. Probably similar, triple element rear wing, big front splitter with infinity wings. Things like that Sydney just doesn't have. We don't have infinity wings on Sydney. Our center tunnel is okay. There's no diffuser on Sydney. People are always spending lots of time on their diffusers and they look dope, but it's not as critical as, the leading edge of the car. I would start over on the aero and build everything around basically the floor and tunnels. Those are the most important bits on that stuff.
And it's like each iteration you learn a lot of lessons, and then it gives you a much better point to start the next project from.
100%. I wish it didn't take so long to learn those lessons.
Or take so much.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Over,
Yep. Man. Well, so Cole, you mentioned Pikes Peak next year. And that was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. There's been kind of some discussion swirling about that there might actually be a Subaru that you're working on. And I've heard rumor for Pikes Peak next year. And I wonder if you can talk at all about that.
Yeah, openly. It's a friend of mine, John McInnes. He ran Pikes Peak the past couple of years in a white Sierra RX-3. Essentially getting ready for this. He got into cars and he had a Subaru stage rally car. It was a 4-door GC, and he's an Australian guy. He was doing rally in Australia, had a good time with it. And then he started doing track day stuff in a Corvette and a Radical, and then he moved to the States. And a couple of years ago, he had the opportunity to buy one of the Pro Drive WRC chassis. It was a show and display car. It was never competed with, but it was factory Pro Drive built. So he scooped that thing up, and gave me the biggest Subaru boner, man. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
It is the car. There's my favorite Subaru in the world. So yep. It was just a dream come true. I'll never forget the moment I was sitting in Australia. It was too good to be true. I was sitting in Australia, drinking some beers down by the beach in Sydney. and I get a text of this car that showed up at the shop. Like, it was real at that moment. The car had actually showed up. And John's got Pikes Peak dreams. You know, he wants to go there and run that car and kind of fulfill that vision. And so the idea is that we take this great chassis, the super historic, you know, factory pro drive built, and we take all the good modern Subaru goods that have been developed over the past 20 years and put that stuff in it. So it has all the latest and greatest sedan drivetrain, you know, similar to what you see in the Vermont sports cars. You know, the EJ engine stuff has come so far. So it's got a lot of good bits on that engine as well, but we're going to keep all the authentic original body stickers. It's going to play the part, but just have all the modern goods that these cars have available today.
Oh man. Now,
So rocket anti-lag or what?
Yes, sir. The rally car, it's got to have anti-lag and a handbrake, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so John's a stud. He's doing the build right, and he wants to drive it. It's not going to be just parked, sat in a garage or collection. He's racing Pikes Peak with it. He wants to do, you know, Gymkhana style driving, slide around and, you know, rip the handbrake and bang the sequential. So he's got the right idea. I don't think any of my clients that come in here are show car guys. I don't stand for it. You know, we drive our
that's
stuff.
good.
So he's excited to thrash the thing and take a run up Pikes Peak with it.
That's awesome.
Did you get your hands on a actual Pro Drive rocket, or you were
Oh, I wish,
based
man.
anti-lag?
Yeah, so I said rocket to John, and he was like, "Oh no, mate, I don't know. I don't want rockets." So
Yeah.
we're doing just like the Turbo Smart anti-lag valves and try that stuff out. But it's a pretty conservative. You know, we're not going for crazy power. We're not going to try to go sub 10 or anything like that. It's a nostalgia car. It's taking, you know, the best body of the Subaru, in my opinion, and putting the best current drivetrain in it. So yeah, it's kind of a dream build, but we don't have crazy aspirations for trying to make it the fastest car or time attack car or anything like that. He'll probably never wheel to wheel it, but he'll do some hill climbs and do some Gymkhana style sliding around and driving. But yeah, we're not trying to ruin the car or make 1,000 horsepower or anything like that.
The brilliant part of that is it's going to keep the car versatile. So I mean, if you're not doing any kind of crazy aero package, it can go right back to being a rally car if you wanted to do hill climbs, pretty much do anything.
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah, he's going to keep it out of the gravel. You know, he's got a Sierra for that. But
Sure.
yeah, we can expect to see him at a few other tarmac hill climbs, I'm sure.
Yeah, SCCA is starting to kick off. They're trying to grow a tarmac hill climb series that's just, I mean, they did one in Kentucky this year, kind of teeing off the whole time trials thing. So it'd be pretty interesting to see if they can really put that stuff together. I think it'd be awesome to take some of these fun time attack cars to do some of these nice pavement hill climbs.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope it takes off.
That'd be awesome. Man, all right. So I have another question that I wanted to ask you, Cole, since we've got you here. I have also heard some rumors, but, you know, and the Sierra car makes me think of this, that there's another Sierra car that you might have, the Sierra Evo. So
Sure.
it's true. All right.
I do.
Can you, I mean, how did that happen? And kind of what is your thought process for that?
Dude, absolute dream come true, man. I couldn't, it was, you know, one of those pictures on the wall kind of thing for me, because that was like, wow, time attack's a real thing. And this is the top US team. And, you know, they went to Australia, like, but I never got to, I was a broke student. I was still going to school. I was still wrenching. Like, I couldn't afford to go to events and see the car. And, but it was legendary. So the car competed, made a big splash. I fell in love with it. And I was more of a Subaru guy, but I'm like, damn, that Evo's looking pretty good. And so I was super drawn to it and never got a chance to see it. Years later, I ran into the team manager, a guy named Richard Rader. And I couldn't stop talking to that guy. He was, you know, we're on pit lane. He's working for another team. And I was like, wait, you're the Sierra guy. And yeah, sure enough, I picked his brain forever. And I was like, where's the car today? And I was like, oh, I don't know. You got to talk to this guy. You know, this guy named Dennis owns the car. And, you know, he's kind of hard to get hold of. And so I sent an email and didn't hear anything. Weeks, months, a bunch of time goes by. And then I get a message and it says, hey, the car, because I pleaded my case. I said, hey, I'm into time attack. I went down to Australia, like followed it, like I get it, you know, I really respect what you guys have done. I'd love to see the car. And yeah, after some time passed, he got a hold of me and simply said, the car's in an airplane hangar in Nevada. Meet me here at this time if you want to see it. Like, okay, I'll be there. So
Wow.
yeah, went over there to see the car, and it was untouched, man. It was like just like it came off the track in Australia on its last run down there. So I got to meet Dennis, got to see the car, you know, peeled back the cover with all the dust on it, and I brought my friend and media guy Judson, and we did a little video on it. We did a little spotlight, and that's on YouTube now to kind of catch up the history of the car and where it's been. And yeah, about a year or two after that, I had the opportunity to buy it and kind of add it to the collection here. So we've got it down in the main shop, and I look at it every single day, man. And it's just,
That's awesome.
It's a work of art, and it's just every little thing that they did. Because Sierra, they were racing Formula Atlantics at a very high level. You know, I think they put 5 or 6 drivers into IndyCar in a time period. So won multiple championships, like proper operation. These guys are pros. And so this time attack team, time attack was like pros. Like, what do you mean? Like, my buddy's a fabricator and I do this. And like, there was no team of people building time attack cars at that time. So the build quality on this thing and speed was far and above what anybody else was able to achieve at that time. And yeah, so it's just kind of a special car, and I look at it every day and I appreciate it. And I don't really have plans for it. I think I'll keep it as is. It's like, I can't afford to run it. What am I going to do? You know, it's like, I can't afford to buy a set of tires to just go to a track day. So I'm just going to admire it each day and kind of preserve it for, you know, history. To me, it's the most beautiful era of time attack before the cars. Like, Aero's cool, it's functional, but it's not pretty. Not like that era of car. You know, that car had an off-the-shelf APR rear wing, like single element, not even the width of the body. Like, what?
Just put on there just so it looked more racy.
Yeah, it was really, really street car stuff. So I see way more street cars, the more Aero than the Sierra Evo has on it. So super cool period of time for time attack, super cool story behind it. And yeah, I just kind of want to preserve it and share the story and kind of hold on to the roots of, you know, time attack.
That's awesome. Well, and have you had it up on a lift, or have you discovered anything? And the reason that I asked that is so Dussex ended up getting a Super Taiku car from Japan that was a factory built car, and we're gonna at some point soon we're hopefully gonna put it up on a lift and get our tape measures, because he's discovered some wizardry in this car. Yeah. And so I'm wondering if you've found anything that has made you go, oh, or taking you by surprise in that.
Yeah, there's a few things that were very ahead of their time, and it was because they're racers, you know. Nothing illegal. In fact, I thought there was going to be like more extensive chassis prep, but there was no gray area in the rule book. They did everything by the book, but they were just doing some really innovative things as far as, you know, even the fasteners that they used and how they would build the Aero, and just there was no CFD done on that thing. They were just like, hey, this worked on the Atlantic car. So like the rear diffuser is based off a mold of a Formula Atlantic diffuser. So you see the tunnels on the rear of that car. Well, they just took the Atlantic diffuser and said, hey, we're going to build off this, and then shaped the tunnels and everything based off of that. So there's a lot of Formula car parts on the car that crossed over. And yeah, there's lots of little interesting details. I never get sick of looking at it. It's, there's a little mouse in the door. And my buddy Eric Sue will have to tell me the guy's name again, but since then I've gotten to know a couple of the mechanics and team members and engineers that worked on that car, and they all have a story, and they'll point at something and be like, oh yeah, I remember fabricating that, or, you know, there's this little stuffed animal mouse that we keep in the door, and just all sorts of little things. One of my favorite features on the car, if you can call it a feature, is the Coolant Overflow reservoir. Okay, Evos with pop head gaskets. You put a lot of boost to them, lift the head, push water. So on the fluid reservoir, the overflow reservoir, it's got these hash marks up it, and it says like, got a little hot, head starting to go, head popped, like gone. And so it had different acceptable levels of water in the overflow reservoir, and it was marked on there. And it's one of my favorite things on the car because it's such a racer thing to do. And it's like they were popping so many head gaskets back then. They had it down to a science. They're like, oh damn, okay, we can do one more lap on this, but then it's really, really gone.
Wow.
So yeah, it was just little cool details like that, and the craftsmanship is second to none, man. Sydney is not built as well as the Sierra Evo is. Like, as far as little details and stuff, it's a very, very well built car, even by today's standards.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, and something else that just kind of occurred to me to ask, because you've driven circuit cars and because you've driven so much time attack now, just maybe from a driver's standpoint, from a mental standpoint, how different are those two disciplines? Like when you hop into the driver's seat, and which one do you like better? Which one is more challenging?
Well, it's time attack and hill climb are kind of the same mental. Like, it's max attack right away. There's no warm up laps. Like, hey, I'll do it on my second or third flyer. Like, in time attack, your tires are awesome for one lap. You get one shot at this deal. Pikes Peak, one shot. Like, you're sitting there cold, you're listening to generators and like just waiting for your turn. Like, it's a long, long morning at Pikes Peak. And then it's like, turn that shit to 11 because you got to get up to the top of the mountain as fast as possible. Similar in time attack, it's like you get your out lap, but then it's on. You got to lay it down the very, very first lap. So I like that. I like that approach, the time attack stuff. I've done some endurance racing and I like it. It's just a different mental strategy to get into it. But there's something about just like going flat out, and knowing you got to bank this flyer this one time. Otherwise you throw away the session and, you're only given a handful of sessions, or even shots at tires. If you take a set of sticker tires, you put it on, sticker tires, they're half a second quicker than that second heat cycle. No doubt about it. So if you throw away a half a second because you didn't get your flyer on the set of stickers, like, that's awful. It's hard to find half a second. So to throw it out the window just because, you weren't ready on that first flyer, it's the pressure's there,
Right.
But I like it. I guess I perform well under those circumstances. I just know it needs to be done. And it's gotten easier mentally to be able to do it. And I find it seamless to transition between like if I'm in a wheel-to-wheel sprint race for 30, 40 minutes at like a NASA, like that's a different mental experience than max attack at a time attack or hill climb. But yeah, I prefer max attack.
Okay.
Now, I'm getting ready to head back out to Utah this weekend with NASA.
I'll be there.
Nice. We'll see you there.
Yeah.
And I actually watched your is it the overall lap record on the outer lap?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was watching that video again because I have some Aero on the car, nowhere near, but I was just like, how fast can he go through some of those corners? And man, that car's insane. So, but I've been trying to watch as many laps of Utah as I can, and just watched yours over and over again. That car scoots around that. You were on max attack on that lap for sure.
Yeah. Well, and there's more power to it. That was like 800 horsepower, which is rad. But when you have 12, like, whoa, what else is in it? And that's kind of one of those tracks that rewards power. It's not like it'd be easy to use the next 400, because it's not like it comes on harder in the mid range. It just pulls a little bit all over. So it was a good lap. It's the standing lap record out there, and it's just. But to me, I'm like, damn, there's more in it, So I'd like to go back out and try it again, but we have to have a pretty dang good reason to pull the GTR out and put tires on it and prep it and all that stuff. It's pretty expensive to operate each day, so you got to have a good reason to do it. But it's my home track. I'm comfortable there, and it's a lot of fun to be able to run that facility. I have it 30-40 minutes from our shop.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, and
very nice.
So Cole, how? So you said now that the car makes another 400 horsepower than it did when you set that time.
Mm-hmm.
With all that extra power, without any changes to the Aero, would the extra power, like, how easy would it be able to use that extra power in that car? Or would you, does the Aero package and the power package, do they both have to be developed together, or just having that extra get up and go, would you be able to really make use of just with the car as it sits?
Yeah, no changes necessary. We're max downforce all the time.
Okay.
People that are like trimming out downforce and stuff at time attack, I'm like, what are you guys doing? This is just make more power. So we're max downforce pretty much all the time, and we have a well-balanced aero package. And that started because it was designed by Andrew in CFD. And so we weren't like really chasing our tails. So we're pretty much max downforce every time we're on track. And then the more I crank the boost up, the more I'm able to punch through the drag, and the car just naturally gets faster. What it does change is your braking points. You get to these points and you're like, okay, well, I'm going 20 miles an hour faster. Like, where do I need to put my new brake marker? And so adapting to that is the hardest part, finding new brake markers. But how the car lays power down is pretty good. It doesn't really change that much.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, and I've asked a bunch of questions. Tasso, Dussex, do you guys have any questions for Cole as we're winding this thing down?
I mean, I think it's just super cool to see, a regular Joe now knowing that you're just a guy who started as a mechanic, make his way kind of through the ranks with how kind of infamous and famous you become. So, it's definitely an inspiration. It also reminds me that I'm way older than you, and probably am a little late in the game.
The gray. People think I'm a lot older. So yeah, I'm 35. I'm a pretty young man in the big scheme of things. Yeah, people guess I'm older all the time.
Yeah.
The nice thing is that the cars do all the hard work. So really, like, age is not that much of a limiting factor, fortunately, with car racing.
Yeah, no, I know some fat 60-year-old dudes. So I've got a long career ahead of me.
Nice.
Heck yeah.
You too, Dussex. You're not that old.
Yeah. Do you know Sean Murphy's going to make it out to Utah this weekend?
Yes, it looks like it.
Dang.
I think so. It's his bachelor party Saturday night.
Dude, that's sick.
Shit.
I'm so fucking jealous.
Yeah.
And you should really work on him. I've been working on him to try and get him to come out to Super Lap battle. So, like, dude, you got to come out to Super Lap. You really got to show, because he is fast in that car. And I know after what happened last year, he's kind of a little bit gun shy, but I want to see him like get back out and just, he's so good and so fast. I'd like to see him out there getting that fame and that, that the champagne and stuff too,
No, he deserves it, man. He's an inspiration. He's a more talented builder than I am, for sure. He's got more skills. He's more hands-on. He does his complete project. He rocks the Lyfe Motorsports stuff on the side of his car. He's a one-man band. He's working dealership in the day, builds everything himself, and super talented dude. And I've been trying to get him to go to Super Lap. Obviously he had his setbacks last year, but I think all the good changes, he's been sending me pictures of the car and all the progress he's made. So he might make it out and actually compete. He'll obviously be out there just attending, but hopefully he's got all of his bits and pieces so he can come and put on a show and just do it for the grassroots Subaru guys, man. He's been hard at it.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see his new car.
Well, and guys, just for people watching or listening at home that aren't familiar with Sean Murphy, just kind of explain who he is and what his car is.
Sean's got one of my favorite STIs. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but Sean and I met years ago, and he was just this GM mechanic from Wyoming. Like he was just kind of doing track days. And we hit it off and stayed in touch, and he's actually become one of my really, really good friends over time. And you can't help but respect and admire the people that are putting in the work and doing it for all the right reasons. He's not posting pictures on Instagram. He's not doing it for fame. He's like, he just wants to build cool time attack stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been around our team, and he came with us to Australia and got to see the big show, and he was like, damn, this is like what time attack can be for me as an individual. So you go to an event like that, and it just reinforces everything that you're doing, and you come back stronger and more focused, more dedicated, because you see other people doing it, and you see other people in your same situation. So yeah, he's definitely an inspiration to a lot of car builders, at home garage guys, to be able to build these high-end cars and put down wicked fast lap times.
And he's not a slouch. He has a couple lap records out at Utah.
Yeah,
I think
TT1 records that I'm like, damn, dude.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't go try to build a TT1 car to beat you. Like that's all order. He's really focused and talented dude for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, when I first saw his car was at the Boost Creek, and I had my car there getting tuned, and his car was there, and it was with like the pseudo flat bottom and then the 305s, and the blue and the green Lyfe Motorsports stuff, and my car was kind of like just starting to take shape then. I was like, wow, like could be what my car looks like someday. And then now my car's 315s, super stupid wide. And I was like, okay, we're having some fun now.
It takes some time, and then you look back, you're like, okay, damn, we did it.
Yeah.
So
And even when you look, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, was Murphy's car part of the inspiration for your wide body build?
Definitely, for sure. I mean, we're seeing how fast his car was at Utah, and then when you look at how like the NASA rules are written, where there's not a lot of tire width limitations, you realize like that dude doesn't have a bunch of power. But that dude's got some crazy rolling speed. And so when you start putting all that stuff together, I mean, it's 450 wheel horsepower, conservative turbo, still on an H-pattern gearbox, but just, I mean, the biggest tires you've ever seen. And yeah, when it came to like, okay, what am I going to do to go fast? It wasn't a sequential. It wasn't 700 horsepower. It was 315s. Yeah, definitely like seeing Sean's car for the first time back in 2018 was like, dang, this is where I want to go. And then getting to actually meet and hang out with them the last couple of times we've been in Utah has just been like, it's cool when you see a car and then you meet the guy. Just kind of like Cole in this example, where like they're actually super cool and super chill dudes, and they're just like they're one of us, or we're one of them, or just another good dude and who wants to have a good time.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Cole, we have taken a lot of your time, and we've asked you a lot of your questions, and so thank you very much for again sitting down with us and chatting with us. As we're winding down here, guys, does anybody else have any questions that they want to ask Cole?
Yeah, I want to know what Jeremy McGrath is like.
Oh yeah,
Such a freaking stud. So laid back. Oh my gosh. So I went and I watched a Netflix special called Unchained last night. I hadn't seen it. It's been out for years. I'm not a big TV guy. And all the nostalgia took me back because I was watching dirt bike videos before I'd ever even ridden a dirt bike. I was 12 years old or something watching Krusty Demons. And to go back and relive these videos that I saw with my friends and stuff and realize that I had just spent some time with Jeremy and like such a chill dude. And I sent him the video that we made and he responded immediately. He's like, rad video. Thanks, man. Can I share it on my page? I was like, and I got home and my wife is watching it with me and she's like, wait, that's the same guy? I'm like, yeah, he really is the king. He's a legend. I don't think she realized how big of a deal it was, but it's really sank in again with me, like what a different level some of these guys are on that I've been able to meet. But just like you guys stated earlier, they're regular dudes just like us. They're racers, they're competitors, they're guys, and Jeremy, there's exceptions. There's some assholes out there, no doubt, that I've crossed paths with. Jeremy is definitely not one of those guys. He's super down to earth, just a fun-loving guy, and it was easy to get him in a Sierra and get his feedback, and he was stoked. And it was really, really cool to meet him and spend some one-on-one time with him. And I'll brag for a second. I had Jeremy McGrath in my car, and we were driving to go get Sierras, and Ken Block called me, and I was like, what is going on? Alternate reality. So I don't want to fanboy out and freak out, but it was just a weird moment in time where I was like, what is even going on? And it just reinforced like how epic a dude like McGrath is, and but how down to earth, how he just likes doing cool stuff with his buddies, and that's what I think we're all just trying to do.
There's this fabric that brings car people together. Like all we want to do is we want to drive fun cars. We want to go fast. We just want to have a good experience. And like, if you're doing something cool, people will seek you out. Yeah. And it's a pretty cool thing. And then once you do, like once they're like, that's what they want to do. It's just, once you get down to business, it doesn't matter what your background is or where you came from. Just let's get in and let's have some fun.
Yeah, no, exactly. These guys that made their whole life off of having fun. And so like Sierras are fun. They're always going to be fun. So I've got this like key, this little carrot I can dangle. It's like, hey, you guys want more fun? Come over here. We're having fun. And I'm able to trick some of these guys to come in and hanging out with me and get to know them a little bit better. And we're all just trying to do the same stuff and play with big toys.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool. Well, Cole, thank you very much again for spending some time chatting with us. We'll have to pay attention and bring you on again sometime and pick your brain more.
Yeah, absolutely,
so
man.
Maybe come around.
I'd happily do it again.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for sticking with us. And until next time, as always, stay tuned with Flatirons Tuning.